for joining me for a little bit of a more serious episode of Pixie Talks.
Pixie Talks, Pixie Talks, reviews and vlogs at Pixie Talks. Pixie Talks, Pixie Talks, reviews and vlogs at Pixie Talks.
Woo! So, you may have noticed that I did not do any Christmas videos this year, which I'm usually pretty excited to do and 100% planned to do. And 2016 had a few of those long stretches of time without any videos from me, so I thought that I would do a little bit of a video discussing mental health. Now, there have been a lot of really great recent pushes, especially online, to normalize and destigmatize discussions about mental health. More and more people are being open and frank about discussing their experiences with depression and anxiety, etc. But what I don't hear much in the way of discussion is about ADHD. ADHD isn't real, it's just a fake illness made up by greedy doctors and lazy parents that don't want to parent their children. ADHD is just an excuse to over-medicate everyone. Hyperactive? Lol, doesn't that just describe normal childhood? All of those are pretty common things to hear somebody say whenever the topic of ADHD is brought up. Since 2016 was one of the worst years that I can recall for being hit with living with the realities of living with ADHD, I thought I would try to explain some of my symptoms to you. Both as an explanation to you, my viewers, for why 2016 was less than consistent for video making, and also just as a way to kind of raise awareness. So first of all, the biggest misconception is that ADHD is not a kid's thing. And this is one of the most frustrating misconceptions. Because if you look up ADHD resources, by and large, all you will find is resources on how to deal with raising a child who has ADHD, not with how to deal with actually living with ADHD as an adult. In fact, for many years, doctors did believe that people grow out of ADHD in adolescence. This is because after puberty, it generally stops presenting with so many of the hyperactive symptoms, so you become less intrusive to the people around you. So although I was diagnosed with ADHD as a child, I went through all of high school not realizing how many of my issues were still being caused by ADHD because I had been told that I probably didn't have it anymore. Spoiler, I did. I really did. The second misconception is that it is not all just about being hyper and easily distracted. Those are certainly common aspects, but it actually runs much deeper than those surface symptoms. Firstly, it is a massive difference in how I process information and learn. I absolutely cannot process large amounts of information in the form of an info dump. So, listening to lectures or reading textbooks is incredibly difficult. I can actively be paying close attention to a speaker and still miss things that were said because my brain will literally gloss over large pieces of information. I learn actively, hands-on, as I do things, not academically. So you can imagine how frustrating school was for me. It isn't that I'm just being distracted by the things around me, it's that my brain literally skips things. Have you ever been trying to read something while you were tired and you end up reading the same paragraph over and over a few times, not really absorbing it? That's my daily experience with trying to process new information. All the time. It can also manifest in more daily, simply frustrating, non-academic ways, like looking for something. I can be looking right at the thing I'm trying to find and my brain will still miss it because my cognizant processing has skipped it. Thanks, brain! My ADHD also comes with a heavy dose of a little something called hyperfocus. And what hyperfocus is when you're doing something and you get really in the zone. I cannot tear myself away from that thing until I have finished doing it. So this can be very helpful when I usually have trouble focusing. It's that extreme hyperfocus that actually allows me to get stuff done. But it's only helpful if I'm hyper-focused on something I should be hyper-focused on. Now this usually happens when working on creative projects, which is a good thing. But guess what? I have a full-time job. I am married and I have a husband who wants to spend time with me. And big projects generally take longer than a single sitting. You know how movies typically portray writers as these quirky, distracted individuals who will lock themselves into their writing office for weeks at a time, only emerging with a finished manuscript? Well, yeah, that's how my brain would love to do things, except that in non-movie land, you actually can't do that. You have other responsibilities. So the result of this is that I end up having to go to work, mid-hyperfocus. And for the entire 8 hours, I am not mentally there. I am thinking about how much I wish I was at home doing the thing that I am still hyper-focused on. And it is a miserable experience because I can't just snap myself out of it. In high school, I was constantly getting talked to by my teachers for reading novels in class. Because when I'm reading a book, I find it very difficult to stop until I have finished the book. I was experiencing hyperfocus. And you think that's the end of it, but oh no! Executive dysfunction is a thing that I really wish I had known was a thing years ago. So executive dysfunction is basically the experience of knowing you have a thing that you have to do and just not being able to make yourself actually do it. It's a neurological symptom that affects planning, flexibility, organization, and self-monitoring. And the best way that I can describe it, imagine that you are sitting on the couch. You have something that you know you need to do. Maybe it's the laundry. Maybe you really need to answer those emails. But you're, let's say, scrolling through Facebook. Nobody has even posted anything new on Facebook in over 15 minutes. It's not even fun anymore. But you physically cannot stop yourself from doing it. It's like you're outside of yourself, screaming at yourself. Get up! Go do the thing! You know you need to do it! Please! Facebook isn't even that fun! What the heck? Get up! Over and over. You now have half the time you originally had to do the thing you need to do, and every moment that passes just makes you more and more stressed about it. But you still can't get out of this weird loop you are stuck in like a skipping record.
Does not compute. Does not compute.
That is executive dysfunction. It can also make time super weird, where it feels like only 10 minutes has passed, but oops, there goes 2 hours, and you're not really sure how it happened. Still think ADHD isn't a real thing? So I also experience a symptom that is almost never talked about, but almost always comes with the ADHD package, called rejection-sensitive dysphoria. And what that basically is an extreme emotional pain or emotional sensitivity triggered by the perception, not necessarily the reality, that a person has been rejected, or by a sense, real or imagined, of failure. So basically, my brain has a host of functioning issues that prevent me from succeeding at things, and then punishes me with extreme emotional pain and panic attacks when I fail. I always just thought that was normal. Doesn't everyone have trouble sleeping at night because they can't stop thinking about that one embarrassing thing that happened like 10 years ago? No? Just me? People that experience rejection-sensitive dysphoria typically either become overachievers and people pleasers, desperate to always be the best at everything they do at any cost. Or they become slackers, giving up before they start because failure is just too painful and it's easier to not try. Now, I fall into that latter category. My entire adolescence and early childhood, I internalized the accusations from the people around me that I was lazy. Why can't you just pay attention? Put your book away. Stop being lazy. Why can't you get your homework done? And from a neurotypical outside perspective, this particular cocktail of symptoms does look exactly like pure laziness. And since I didn't know what any of those symptoms was, I thought I was just a lazy person and came to accept it. So I stopped trying because getting things done was so hard and failing was so painful. Now, another less common symptom that I have struggled with for this past year is called depersonalization and derealization. Now, I don't experience this as intensely or as extreme as it can be experienced. In extreme cases, depersonalization can lead to multiple personality disorder and other similar issues. Mine is a lot less intense than that. I simply can experience time where the world around me feels unreal or detached from me as a person. I move about my day and my world with a vague sense that nothing around me is real or that I somehow am not real. I would best describe it like the world around me feels like I'm watching a movie. I'm not a part of it somehow. It's not real and I'm not in it. This causes me to go into a kind of an autopilot and has lasted anywhere from a few days to a week at a time. And in this video, I haven't even covered a host of other smaller symptoms like textile sensitivity, panic attacks, and a need for constant mental stimulation. These are all parts of ADHD, and although I have developed many coping methods for dealing with them over my adult life, this past year was particularly bad. And I just wanted you guys to know why video making wasn't always at the top of the priority list in the midst of that. Moving into 2017, I'm going to be getting prescription drugs to help me with a lot of these symptoms, and I'm actually pretty optimistic about my mental health moving forward. Because honestly, a lot of the stuff is much easier to overcome when you know what you're dealing with. A huge part of my issues through high school was just not knowing that these were real mental health symptoms that I was struggling with. That it wasn't just because I was a lazy person that I had trouble getting homework done. That I wasn't just intrinsically some kind of morally deficient person. That I had a real mental health issue to work with. I've had to become more educated on this topic in the last year as my symptoms became less manageable, but moving forward in the long term, that's only going to make it more manageable. I plan to grab my ADHD this year and kick its ass all the way to 2018. Happy New Year's! I'm sorry for the lack of videos recently, but hopefully you found this video informative. I know I don't usually talk about serious subjects here, so thanks for sticking with it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!